The next award is one of the most important awards for tonight. This is the award for the lifetime contribution towards Dawah. This award goes to no other than Sheikh Yusuf Estes. Before Sheikh Yusuf Estes comes in, I'd like to invite Brother Saad Tasleem to come share some amazing stories about him. And I'll request when Sheikh Yusuf comes on the stage, rather than just joining your hand, if you all stand up and honor him. Thank you.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi man wala. Before I start on Sheikh Yusuf Estes, I want to say that we're deeply grateful to Mufti Menk for that talk. I felt like he was speaking personally to me, as I imagine that everyone in the room felt that way as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him, and may Allah forgive him for lengthening that talk. Sheikh Yusuf Estes. Now, Sheikh Yusuf Estes, on the car ride here, he said, if you praise me or say anything good about me, I'm going to come knock you in the face on stage.
No, I said I'll throw you off the stage.
Okay, khalas. He said he would throw me off the stage. So I'm going to take him up on that challenge, inshallah ta'ala, right now. Sheikh Yusuf Estes, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him, he has affected me personally in two very important stages in my life. My first stage of coming to Islam and coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I was blessed to be in a community, in a place, in a locale where Sheikh Yusuf Estes was living. And when Sheikh Abdurrahim Green mentioned me driving him around, that was actually absolutely correct. Because when I came to Islam and I started practicing Islam and I wanted to learn more about Islam, I was drawn to people like Sheikh Yusuf Estes because I saw him as someone who wasn't just sitting behind a desk or standing on a minbar and preaching and that was it. I saw him as someone who was out there actually physically working and spending his life, dedicating his life to bringing people to what he was brought to, the religion of Islam. And those years, and I think it was about a year or year and a half, I shouldn't say years, were some of the most important years of my life because those were the years before I went to personally go study Islam. And there are lessons that I learned in that short year and a half or that year that throughout my studies I benefited from. Until today I benefit from those things that Sheikh Yusuf Estes taught me. I remember sitting in the car, and I'm just going to share one story with you, inshallah ta'ala. I don't want to drag this night on to be too much longer, but Sheikh Yusuf Estes tells of a story, and he told me this story. You know, I was young in Islam, and as it is common when somebody first comes to Islam, or they first start practicing Islam, or they learn a little bit about Islam, it is likely that the person can become overzealous. And he told me a story which till today I tell in almost every one of my seminars. And that is the story of a woman who came to the masjid. She was an elderly woman. And she took her shahada. She became Muslim. And then as Sheikh Yusuf Estes tells the story, and as I recall it, that as she took her shahada, the people of the masjid, they pushed Sheikh Yusuf Estes out of the way. They pushed him aside. They said, you've done your job, you've given her the shahada, now please, we'll take care of the rest. And they started asking her questions and this and that and telling her what to do and what not to do. Until one of the brothers said to her, are you married? And she said, yes. They said, well, is your husband Muslim? She says, no, he's Christian. And so they tell her, well, you have to get a divorce. Why? Well, if you go home, if you have relations with your husband, you'll be committing adultery, zina. So you have to get a divorce. And as Sheikh Yusuf Estes, and as I recall him telling me the story, he says that I was pushed to the back and I was trying to say something, but they wouldn't let me speak. They wouldn't let me say anything. And they really pushed this upon her until they pressured her. And she kept saying, how can I divorce my husband? I've been married to him for 30 some odd years, 40 some odd years. We have kids. I can't just go home and divorce my husband. They say, no, you have to. And she got so disheartened that day she left the masjid renouncing Islam, accepting Islam and renouncing Islam in the same gathering. And you know, when Sheikh Yusuf Estes told me this story, and I doubt he actually recalls telling me this story, but I recall this story very clearly. He had tears in his eyes when he was telling me this story. And he said, Saad, if you were to look at what happened versus what could have happened, it'll make you cry. Because what could have happened was that we give her shahada, she becomes Muslim, she accepts Islam. And we help her develop in her iman and get closer to Allah. And she goes home and she gives da'wah to her husband. And he said, this is likely, this happens. And I said, I've seen it happen quite a lot. Her husband becomes Muslim. The children become Muslim. The family becomes Muslim. And a whole family is brought to Islam. That's what could have happened. He said, what happened now is that she has gone home renouncing Islam. And if you look at what's happened here, he said, let's, for the sake of the argument, say that the people who are saying that if she went home and committed zina, that would be correct. Which is worse? Her going home as someone who is a sinful person, as we said, just for the sake of the argument, I actually don't agree with that. But saying that, yes, she went home and she was with her husband and being married to her husband was not permissible and she was a sinful Muslim. But what's the alternative? Now she dies as a non-Muslim. And Sheikh Yusuf Estes was, the point he was trying to make here is the importance not just of knowledge, but also of wisdom and experience. And that is something that I've carried with me throughout my studies of Islam. Until today, that's a very, very big lesson for me. And as I said, as Sheikh Yusuf Estes told me the story, he had tears in his eyes. Because I know that when Sheikh Yusuf Estes makes da'wah, it's not just a job for him. For him, he is calling people to what he was called to. He just wants to share the goodness that he has. And he has dedicated his life to that. My stage, my life right now, I have been giving da'wah actively for approximately 4 years. And there have been times, wallahi, that's like as I said, the talk of Mufti Mink was so personal for me because there have been times where I've wanted to give up. There's been times where I said, I can't do it anymore. I just can't carry on. What's the point? Why don't I just live a normal life? I'll get a 9 to 5, have the weekends off, go on vacation every couple months, just live a nice, peaceful life. And subhanAllah, I look at people like Sheikh Yusuf Estes, who've dedicated his life to making da'wah, to calling people to goodness, just sharing the message of Islam in any way. And I know sometimes, subhanAllah, people look at Sheikh Yusuf Estes and look at Guide Us TV and all that, and they're like, why are you always, we feel like you're always selling us stuff. You're always promoting Guide Us TV, you're always promoting this and promoting that and promoting that. And I often say, do you think he is promoting himself? Never once has Sheikh Yusuf Estes promoted himself. What he is promoting is the message of Islam. And one of the things that we learned in Medina, subhanAllah, is indicators of sincerity and indicators of insincerity. And one of those indicators is that when a person is criticized and they go through hardship and they leave that action, this is a strong indicator that they were not sincere, or at some point they lost the sincerity in the work that they were doing. But a person who can go through test and trial as every da'i goes through, as the prophets went through and those who followed in the prophets ﷺ in their footsteps, every single person as they went through those tests and trials, the one who persevered, this is an indication of that person's sincerity. وَلَا أُزَكِّي عَلَى اللَّهِ أَحَدٍ. But I believe that Sheikh Yusuf Estes, I'm not going to speak for the rest of you, but for myself, he is a person that I turn to for motivation after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I believe that on a personal level, he is that guiding light for me, as he was in the beginning of my journey and as he is today. And wallahi, anything that I say right now will not do justice to how I view Sheikh Yusuf Estes. And subhanAllah, I actually met him after a long, long time, about a few months ago in Houston, Texas. I said, Sheikh, how are you? How are you doing? How's everything? Do you remember me? And he's like, kind of. You're a little familiar to me. And at that point, subhanAllah, I realized that for Sheikh Yusuf Estes, it's not about just the individual and how the individual feels about me, it's the broader picture. And it has always been about the broader picture. And as I sat with him in these last couple of days, memories came back to him. And I highly, highly doubt he realizes the impact he has had on my life. But that is once again an indication of his sincerity, because he seeks no reward, he seeks no gratitude, he seeks no thanks. And I know he's about to punch me in the face or throw me off the stage, as he says he would. But the one who doesn't thank the people does not thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I thank you, Sheikh Yusuf Estes. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you, to grant you the best of this life and the next. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make you sincere. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept every ounce of effort that you have done in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I ask Allah to forgive you your mistakes, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise you even higher in rank. Please join me in welcoming Sheikh Yusuf Estes to the stage. فليتفضل مشكورا.
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, huwa alladhi ja'alana muslimin. It's only Allah who guides. He tells us in the Quran, and the meaning of it is, you don't guide who you love, but it is Allah who guides whomever He wills to this Sirat al-Mustaqim. Listening to some of my most beloved shuyukh tonight, listening to them speak from the heart, has had a very big effect on me, something I didn't even imagine would come out of this gathering. But especially listening to Saad just now talking, I heard so many people say I'm not worthy of this, and I know for sure I'm not. But I'm so happy that Allah has let me be a part of helping other people see the beauty of al-Islam, to see the magnificent feeling and the tawheed, the fact, the proof there really is Allah, and He does have a purpose for all of us. I listened to Mufti Mink speaking about himself, and at the same time I could hear, as you heard, he was talking to all of us at the same time. I listened to Abdurrahim Green. I have known him so many years, and every time he speaks, I get something out of it. Nouman Ali Khan, amazing. What can I say? And Tawfiq, these are the giants to me. To even be on the same stage with them is really an honor, way beyond. But I do know this one thing that rings so true. That when you do this for sake of Allah, as you try to draw closer to Allah, you will see more tests, more difficulties. So in your own personal life, when you feel like, oh, this is too much, that's actually when you're getting the closest to Allah. Hang in there. La yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wusaha. Allah, He's not going to put more on you than you can bear. Know that. And then those tests become easier. When I heard Ismail Mink speak about his children, losing the children, I know exactly how that felt right after I came to Islam. I know a lot of those things that we never talk about. There's no benefit, really, to go into it in a speech, at a convention. But All of us, we have feelings. All of us, we have difficulties. Just know this, if you're working toward getting close to Allah, you'll experience it, but it won't be long, and you'll find the yusra, the ease. After every difficult, Allah, He brings ease. And insha'Allah, you'll see that beautiful reward on the Yawm al-Qiyamah. That's the real award that we're looking for. I don't really plan to say anything special tonight, but after hearing about Ahmed Deedat, I wanted to say this. The IPCI in South Africa asked me to come there under our brother Rafiq Hassan, who used to be in charge there. Asked me and my family to come and see if I would consider taking the place of the Sheikh. And that in itself was a big honor. And again, I wasn't worthy of it, and I told him that, and that's why I didn't accept it. But when I saw this award, I don't know if you guys can see it very well from where you're at, but that is exactly the picture that's on one of the books that he had. I don't know if any of you remember that book, the little booklet. But when I saw it, I couldn't help but think about him. Brothers and sisters, our Sheikh Ahmed Deedat was all about speech. He was a speaker. He was an amazing speaker. I disagree with all of these debates in the way that they turn people away. I don't like that, but I love the speaker himself. I don't like debates. I like discussions. I like engagement, yes. But you know something? Look at what Allah put him through in his final days. 9.5 years, laying in a bed, paralyzed, unable to speak, except with his eyes. And his son Yusuf, who Rafiq Hassan told me himself personally, that the Sheikh had that aneurysm come to him right after he'd lost his temper real bad. And it was in a meeting, and he was shouting at his son, the same one who developed the communication system for him for that 9.5 years. He talked through his eyes to his son, who told us what he was saying. And I saw that video, that last video that he sent to Dr. Zakir Naik. And I was right there in the room when we all saw it together. And I have to tell you something. It's very humbling to realize that whatever is happening to me is nothing compared to what happens to others. Those who today see their own children or their parents dying in front of their eyes just because they're Muslim. Those who are being turned back, turned away after a great journey, trying to get to freedom just because they're a Muslim. Brothers and sisters, for all of us here and those who may hear this in the future, just remember, the test is from Allah. Bear with it. Stay with it. Never, ever give up. It's worth it. And I hope and I pray that all of us can someday be in that paradise, in that Jannah, with people like Ahmed Deedat and all these brothers that we've heard from tonight, and our sisters who we didn't get to hear much from. We hope next event we'll hear a lot more from them as well. Jazakumullah khair. And I want to give you a translation of what I started with when I said, Alhamdulillah, alladhi jalna muslimin. It means we give all the praise and thanks to Allah. And He's the one who makes us Muslim. May Allah make us Muslim and keep us Muslim always. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you again.
I think so. I don't have words right now.